The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by the hosts, their guests, callers, and advisors on Freedom March are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS, the Verizon Media Group. Freedom March is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirely without the express written consent of the Verizon Media Group. Freedom March is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group, copyright 2025. All rights are reserved.
The march to freedom is long, and it must continue to evolve.
Led by God and grounded in Scripture.
The march to freedom must be righteous, with a focus on accountability and sustainability to ensure that we leave no man behind.
Have the courage to do the right thing and get yourself a red Bible.
As we unleash the minds, you can be confident that the revolution is alive, and we will continue to document it.
This is Freedom March.
This is Freedom March.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by the hosts, their guests, callers, and advisors on Freedom March are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS, the Verizon Media Group. Freedom March is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirely without the express written consent of the Verizon Media Group. Freedom March is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group, copyright 2025. All rights are reserved.
The march to freedom is long, and it must continue to evolve.
Led by God and grounded in Scripture.
The march to freedom must be righteous, with a focus on accountability and sustainability to ensure that we leave no man behind.
Have the courage to do the right thing and get yourself a red Bible.
As we unleash the minds, you can be confident that the revolution is alive, and we will continue to document it.
This is Freedom March.
This is Freedom March.
Oh, good Friday afternoon. Welcome to Freedom March. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Levan Miller. You're listening to us on channel 103.5, The Beat FM. Channel 224, that's on cable. Channel 112, that's on Flow. And of course, on ILTV Studios, where you should be following us. Today's Friday. And I know, as often as we get the opportunity here on Freedom March, it is my duty to implore, to admonish, to advise, and sometimes to even cajole those of you that will go into the spaces that you occupy, that you know as your local community watering holes this weekend, to do every single thing in your power to ensure that this weekend your actions do not add to, nor do they take away from the population. I want to get that out of the way early because I see that Pookie and them are at it again. I see that Pookie and them are in these little dark-colored Japanese vehicles. I see that Pookie and them are jumping out of these dark-colored vehicles, and I see that Pookie and them are wielding high-powered rifles. And for whatever it is worth, Pookie, tall boy, plait of head, blacks, I want to say to you all were doing so good. We had such a wonderful 6 weeks or there's about of little to no crime, and I like that. So Pookie, blacks, tall boy, plait of head, hear me out. Whatever it was that quelled you all over the last 6 to 8 weeks, let us revisit that. There is no need for there to be carnage and chaos in our society. And so I invite you here from Freedom March to go into your spaces, man, to enjoy yourselves, to soak yourselves in frolic. Let them know that it's Friday, the boys have been paid, and all of the girls are outside and they're looking pretty, and they are out there for the taking. And so I invite you to go out there and to take as many of them that will have you. But in doing so, as you go to and fro, as you go fro into, as you go into your watering hole spaces, I invite you to wet up the bar with a good time. That's how they're going to know you got paid, by the way. But once you've done that, once you have enjoyed your spaces, once you have sauntered about and sashayed about, once you've frolicked, and once you've finagled about, I want you to make sure that you exercise the kind of prudence and judicious behavior, I mean you, Pookie, and Blacks, and Tall Boy, and Platterbeard, that you exercise the kind of behavior that returns us back here on Monday with the population firmly intact. That is the admonition. That is the advice. That is the cajolement here from Freedom March. And if you get that right, then next week you'll have the opportunity to watch us here on Freedom March. And oh, what a wonderful opportunity that will be. All right? So to the girls, I implore you, when you see Pookie them, man, tell Pookie them you ain't talking to no fellas who into badness. Because if you say forthrightly that badness is out of style, my dear, I believe that you have the power to change the culture. I believe you have the power to shift the temperature. And I believe that you have the power to conform Pookie them. And to Pookie them, that's Tall Boy, that's Blacks, and that's Platterbeard. Be sure, man, that you will remain committed to ensuring that you are definitely not going to add to, but more importantly, not take away from the population this weekend. Anyway, that's the jingle. Freedom March. We'll be right back after this break.
Fill up box for all $30.
The new KFC Fill-Up Box, serving 6 juicy pieces of chicken, 4 buttery biscuits, crispy fries to share, and 12 premium original recipe KFC nuggets, all packed into one crave-worthy box. So dig in and do whatever the crunch you want with the KFC Fill-Up Box. Only at KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Experience the difference with BTC's fixed services. Whether you're working from home or enjoying family time, BTC ensures you're always in touch with the people and moments that count. BTC isn't just a service, it's a lifestyle. Stay connected, stay inspired, and live your best life. BTC.
This is Freedom March.
Hello, good afternoon. Again, thank you so much for staying with us through the break. I'm Levin Miller. You're listening to us on channel 103.5, the Beat FM, channel 224, that's cable, channel 112, that's Flow, and of course on ILTV Studios on Facebook. So there is an interesting set of, I don't know if you want to call them studies, I don't know if you want to call them folklore, I don't know if you want to call them apocryphal, but I'm going to preach this to you as the gospel according to Levin, right? Breast Cancer Awareness Month is the month of October. Every Thursday and Friday this month, we're going to try to see if we can focus some specific attention on this venomous killing machine that has, over the course of the past couple decades, taken so many women that we love away from us. Some people would say prematurely. To those of us who are people of faith, have taken them away from us in a fashion that we ordinarily would not have preferred. I like that line. But as I try to do research for these shows, I try to think about what exactly is the way to get the information about the importance of breast cancer to you, the population, in a way that is easy enough to digest, serious enough to offer information, but entertaining enough for there to actually be some new considerations, right? Because here is what I tell people, as somebody that has trained in the area of psychology and sociology, the one thing I do know is that almost every single one of the godfathers of sociology at some point is, was, or could be considered a crazy man. So whether you are from the school of Sigmund Freud or from any one of the other sociologists of the early times, it is quite possible that if you believe in Aristotle or Socrates or any one of them, that some fundamental concept that they came up with at the early onset of the theory may have actually gained them the title of being crazy. And so it is because I understand that men who pioneer must first be considered unstable. I am not afraid of offering concepts, ideas, ideologies that may not ordinarily fall in line with the science of today. And again, I tell you, I'm old enough to have been a part of a generation that said that we needed to stop using the brown paper bag. I am old enough to remember when you all in paid advertising came on a TV network known as PBS and said that if I continued to use the brown paper bag, I would be the reason that the planet heat up, and as a consequence, the forests would all go missing, and the whole place would catch a fire, and that was why we needed to make sure that we switched from brown paper bags to plastic bags in an effort to save the planet. I remember that was the science of the time. Since then, I've survived that. I've survived the AIDS pandemic. I've survived the global recession. I've survived possibly a near global depression, which was triggered by COVID-19. I've survived COVID-19. And what I am now firm in my view of is that many times the science available is the science and research of the persons that can afford to fund it at the time. And so, I don't know how I will get funding for this, but I perceive that if I'm able to build a good enough case, that there is a group or cadre of men somewhere that want to support this research. And so, throughout my research, throughout my checking, throughout my perusing of the internet, which, let's face it, is where we all do research now, right? So I always hate when people say, oh my God, you listen to the internet. Well, Holy Grail, where do you go to get your information? An encyclopedia? We're all searching the internet. And in a time when there are multiple highways of information coming towards us at a high rate of speed, some you accept, some you discard, and some you just file away as possibly necessary in arguments of the future. That's kind of how I sift through my information. Some of it right at the onset, you can tell is hogwash. Some of it, you might want to test the verisimilitude of at some point. And others of it, you don't know where to list it, so you kind of just put it in the pending folder, which is, I kind of have one of those in my brain. But my guest on yesterday said something that I thought was interesting, to say the least. They have suggested that the treatment or the care post the discovery of breast cancer, the treatment and the care post the removal of your breast, the treatment or the care post the initiation of treatment for your breast cancer triggers menopause. And if it triggers menopause, it would mean that it shuts down the natural desire for interaction, for procreation, for sexualization of the breast. And in a world where we live, where women seem to be interested in everything on this planet except for sex, in a world and in a time where we live, where women seem to want to do everything except the one thing the Bible I read say God make them for. See, the trees were made for the birds, the berries were made for the beasts, the grass for whatever the cattle, the air for the birds again, the ocean for the fish. But woman, if you read the Bible I read, was made specifically for man. No, there is nothing else that I can see in my Bible that I read that says to me was made for man. not the earth, not the herb, not the birds, not the beasts, none of that was for man. As a matter of fact, based on my interpretation, we'll talk about it with the spiritual advisor at some point, all of those other things in creation was made for God. And so if you ask me, the only way for God to get any glorification from a woman is for her to be a good woman to a man, so that the man could say, oh, thank God for this good woman. And I argue that one of the best ways for her to come into compliance with this is through sex and sexuality, which, according to my guest yesterday, is something that tapers off during the treatment for breast cancer. And so I got thinking, there are many medical ways to check for breast cancer. There are many blood tests, physical tests, biopsies, and the list goes on for how you go about scientifically checking for cancer. But what if anecdotally I could prove that possibly the reason women are not detecting earlier is because you all ain't sexy enough? What if I could convince you that if you all was having a little bit more sex, it might be possible that we could catch some of this breast cancer a little earlier? So I saw these two clips in social media where obviously I'm not alone on this, and where doctors from another part of the world on some other platforms seem to share my opinion that maybe if someone was fondling these breasts a little earlier, maybe if someone was fondling these breasts a little more frequent, maybe if you, because I keep telling women, you can't kiss your own forehead, right? So the best thing to do is let a man do it, right? But maybe, just maybe, and again, I'm happy to be called crazy. Sigmund Freud once was. As a matter of fact, Sigmund Freud called himself crazy at some point. I think that we should have a little bit more breast sucking going on. And if we're able to accomplish that, I think that some of our sisters can have earlier detection. So let's go to this clip from YouTube or from wherever it is about how there could possibly be a correlation between breast sucking and detection.
For men, sucking the breast is also very important.
It helps.
It helps, So
most of us, we've saved a lot of lives.
It helps. Especially for women who don't have children, they are always at risk of getting because the breast is not sucked.
Yeah.
And then some men, I don't know whether they are too religious or too holy, I don't know. Some feel that when you do these things, then like you have sinned, I don't know. Why should I suck a breast? Minya kwala, minya baby, that kind of thing. But I keep telling people that when it comes to breast sucking, men are good at it because they suck breasts right from there to when they die.
Yeah.
So
we are used to it.
For men, it's going to help women a lot if you help them. Don't go and suck the breast milk when the woman has given birth.
Yeah.
The milk is not for the man.
Yeah.
It's for the baby. So at the time when the woman has given birth, allow the baby to do the sucking. And that, you see, sometimes women are like, why should I do 6 months breastfeeding? And these are, you feel that you are just giving the child milk. But in essence, you are helping yourself.
Yeah.
So feeding your child or breastfeeding your baby is very important as a woman. That is why if a woman has not given birth, it is a worry because at the end of the day, the breast must be sucked. So if you are a man, please try as much as even if you haven't done it before. For this month of October, where we have breast cancer awareness, try to suck a breast.
And that, my friends, appears to be really good advice to me. As a matter of fact, I want her to write a page in the Bible. That is the best piece of advice I think I've heard all October. Wherever you are in this Commonwealth, I invite you, particularly during the month of December, to suck a breast. Because when I ask ChatGPT, right, I like to ask ChatGPT questions because they are an unbiased opinion. I don't know Chat don't know me. But I asked Chat, does fondling and sucking breast regularly by a man help to detect breast cancer? And Chat has said, no. Sucking and fondling breasts does not help to detect breast cancer. Watch the caveat. While physical contact may make someone more aware of changes in the breast, it is not a reliable nor medically recommended method for detection. Well, Chad, I asked you how reliable it was. I asked if when I suck the breast and fondle them, if I could possibly detect breast cancer. And although you say no, you somehow come in and put in this wonderful little caveat that no, it wouldn't help me detect breast cancer. But the physical contact, you mean the sucking? But the physical contact, you mean the fondling? Because that's all the physical contact I intend to have with this. You think I plan to jump kick it? The only thing I plan to do to it is suck it and fondle it. And if that helps you to realize changes in the breast, then did I not in earnest detect your breast cancer? Chat goes on to say, watch this, self-examination can help detect breast cancer. Regular checking of your own breast for lumps and changes in shapes and size and skin dimpling or nipple discharge. Well, who better to look for nipple discharge than me? When I suck the breast, the nipple will discharge. We know that you ain't no woman in nursing status. When I taste milk from your breast, I will know immediately you need to go and see a doctor. I do not trust the science. I remember when you all told me that plastic bags were here to save the planet, and now the Free National Movement has outlawed them because apparently they're destroying the planet. I understand that science is largely researched by the people that can afford the research. And if all you are doing is looking for the answer of the person that paying the money, then sometimes the research might say something that leans towards his inclination. Chad also goes on to say that they recommend mammograms, which I also recommend. They recommend ultrasounds and MRIs, which I also recommend. But that doesn't exclude sucking the breast. And that is where I'm prepared to wage my bet. And I'm not alone, because women, educated women, all over the world appear to believe the same thing. Let's go to the second clip from, again, a noted person somewhere in the world on her belief that having your breast regularly fondled could help you ward off breast cancer.
They've got cancer. That is why I encourage men to suck those titties, and I encourage women. Is it embarrassing? You don't suck a titty. What do you suck? You've got to suck something. What do you suck? You just go to the tills.
And so I agree with her. You must suck the titty. And if my guess from yesterday's assertions were correct, and if the treatment and the process of breast cancer removes the urge for sexual desire because it triggers menopausal symptoms, the hot flashes, the vaginal dryness, the low libido, then my friend, I say to young women everywhere that the earlier you can catch this vicious, very destructive disease known as breast cancer, the better it is for you. And I am of the view that a non-intrusive, non-invasive, inexpensive way of testing for this disease lies right next to you every single night, and I don't understand why you wouldn't use it. And so, I'm petitioning and imploring and admonishing and advising women all across the Commonwealth, as the de facto leader of the woman them, with expressed interest on the young woman them, to please permit someone to suck your breast this evening. After all, how else will you test the science unless you test the science? Anyway, I hear the jingle. That means we go into the break. Don't move. You've heard my anecdotal expert advice. Never forget that I am a breast examining, what am I? I am a breast examining specialty technician. That's what I am. And so you have to take my advice. But on the other side of the break, we have someone that's an actual medical doctor. And we'll see what he thinks about my anecdotal theory. Don't move. Freedom March will be right back.
This is Freedom March.
This is Freedom March.
Hello, welcome back to Freedom March. Thank you so much for staying with us through the break. I'm Levin Miller. Again, we're on 103.5 The Beat FM. We're on channel 224, that's on cable. Channel 112, that's on Flow. And ILTV Studios on Facebook. I often wonder who doesn't know which channel we're on. And that's interesting. I move around and people always ask me the same question. What channel it is y'all let's come on again? And I say it every day. We're on channel 224 if you're on cable. We're on channel 112 if you're on Flow. But you can always find us on ILTV Studios over on Facebook. But if you click the little link that says follow, every single time I turn that camera on, your phone will get a notification. And that way you can enjoy us here on Freedom March as often as we are here. You've heard my research, anecdotally of course. I'm not a medical physician. Although I think, I write like a doctor, and so I think I could get away if they only needed notes from me. But every now and again, you've heard me say that whether it was Aristotle or Sigmund Freud or any one of the other smart fellas, right? People always thought they were crazy, and I know you all are going to say that I'm crazy for listening to African women talk about the important correlation between having breast sucked and breast health. And I'm saying that if in your youthful years, you should be doing youthful things and sex is a youthful thing, then I think you should be increasing the amount of sex that you have, which increases the amount of fondling your breast will have, which will increase the possibility of you detecting irregularities with your breasts. But if you think I'm crazy, no problem. That's my anecdotal research. But since you can't get away with anecdotal research in TV, and at some point you have to give people actual facts, I brought with me Dr. Theodore Turnquest, who is an oncologist and has seen cancer in the breast and can say what are the correlations, whether my anecdotal research is correct, and can also tell us what does the science suggest. And so, Doc, welcome to Freedom March.
Well, thank you for having me here. Interestingly enough, you're actually not that far off.
I knew it. Am I a genius?
I don't know if I can say that, but I think you're not that far off. So one of the more common ways that breast cancer is detected is through manipulation of the breast.
Okay.
And partner manipulation actually turns out to be pretty important as well. What you're alluding to basically comes down to how do I put this? Comes down to familiarity with what is normal for that individual. And so if you have somebody that's intimate with that person and knows what their normal is, when something becomes abnormal, then it's obviously very noticeable to that individual. So your assumptions are really actually not that far off.
I like your language though, partner manipulation. This just sounds so nice and technical. So you mean breast fondling?
Yes.
Right, see that? See that? Fondle, we didn't need to call a whole doctor for that.
Right.
Breast fondling is actually pretty decent for detection.
Yes.
According to the doctor.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep going.
So actually I've had a colleague of mine call me about 2 years ago, and that's actually how he detected a mass in his wife's breast. He said, quote, "We were just fooling around and I felt this thing that I never felt before." So it's not an unusual way for this whole system to start off.
Okay.
Yes, the breast fondling. The correlate in men, and I know this was in your show, but that's usually how testicular cancer is found.
So somebody should fondle the testes too?
So
This is a win-win situation.
So, and that's especially in young men. That's
Wow.
actually usually how it's found. The partner incidentally notices something that is not usually there, and that leads into a referral into a healthcare facility. To
So
life.
we should assist in keeping each other healthy, doc. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
You check mine,
Yeah.
and I can check yours.
Absolutely.
This is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So the second part of it about whether or not breastfeeding is important in women, it actually is. It's actually one of the things that actually helps to prevent breast cancer.
Okay.
So women giving birth and breastfeeding itself is actually protective.
Wow.
So like I said, some of your assumptions are actually not that far off.
Okay.
And there's actually data behind it, not specifically in your instance, but there is data behind it that actually validates that it's true.
Okay. So how long have you been in this field of cancer treatment, and then I guess more specifically breast cancer treatment?
Oh, I've been there a while. So right now, I think I'm coming up on my 24th year.
Okay.
Yeah, so 24 years, yeah.
Yeah. And I've said my closest interaction with breast cancer isn't as a partner. Actually, it was as a grandchild, right? And my first introduction to breast cancer was my grandmother, who I happened to live with. And just an annual check, right? And it was so interesting. She went 1 year. She was perfectly fine. By the time it's the next year, she had stage 2 breast cancer, right? In the space of 11 months.
Right.
Of course, technology, this was 2000, we're talking circa 2004. Technology wasn't what it is today. All the ultrasounds and stuff weren't what they are now. So it was majorly, blood tests and one bunch of blood tests that took a long time. I think they even had to send some stuff off and wait on it to come back, the spin around time. I'm thinking in my mind, I would have been in Inagua, or I was in Inagua, so that would be maybe April of 2006, but I know that she had done the annual from about November or there's about. Of course, through the public system. So a turnaround time of about 12 to 16 weeks, right?
Right.
How much has that improved in modern days?
Unfortunately, the turnaround time from biopsy to finished pathology report has not improved a lot.
Okay.
I think it's a matter of volume. The amount of cases they're seeing is increased. And there's processes that are associated with public institutions that we all sort of bump up against when we do it.
Okay.
The amount of surgeons that we have that are able to do it, and also the amount of radiologists we have that are able to do it has increased.
Sure.
I can say that. But the turnaround time has not increased significantly.
So we're still looking at, from the point of detection to the point of realization or actualization or diagnosis,
right,
12 weeks.
Minimum, yes.
Okay. All right. We're at week 12. It is agreed and understood. This is breast cancer.
Right.
Again, my very closest relationship with breast cancer is as a grandchild.
Right.
And I want to tell you, I grew up in a generation, but you talked about this on your way in, I grew up in a generation where things were socially different than they are now.
Right.
So my grandmother was quite, how do you put this, at ease about having her naked breast exposed, and I grew up in a house with a grandmother,
right,
whatever that means, right? And so, she showed the discoloration and the way the skin was starting to get flaky and et cetera, et cetera. The decision is made, she has to do surgery, no problem. Surgeons 20 years ago didn't do the kind of surgery that I see happening now, right? So it looked like they called some guy in from Zanzibar, maybe, with a machete.
Right.
And they had like one of those old wooden chopping blocks that you'd put on your table.
Right.
And they just told her, okay, rest the breast here, and whap!
Right.
And then they got some other guy, I don't know, maybe from Sid's Bar,
Right.
and say, you can stitch?
Right.
You ever hem a pants?
Right.
Great, hem that. And it was just like the most interesting surgical finish work I'd ever seen.
Right.
How has that improved over the years?
Not much.
Really,
So,
the things I see now in social media, they look like little stitch lines. They look like little. Like,
so the stuff that you're looking at in social media is probably reconstructed breasts.
okay.
So that's after somebody's had a mastectomy, and a plastic surgeon has come back in and reconstructed the breast.
Okay.
And so in our context, that would be something that would need to be planned up front.
Okay.
And if you can imagine coordinating now a surgeon and a plastic surgeon
yeah.
in a public sector
Yeah.
setting.
You just turned 16 weeks into 36 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so a decision usually is made, what can we get done and what can we get, what would be most beneficial for the individual at this moment moving forward. But incidentally, I mean, you talked about your grandmother. Usually in the Bahamas, when you have women that are over the age of 50, are married or widowed, or their mindset on what they want to do actually changes.
Okay.
Because the reconstructive stuff is more aesthetics.
Right.
But if they're at the point in their life where they're not really into what people think about or what they're looking at, usually you get the other decision, which is, okay, take this breast off and take this other one off, because I don't want to ever have to come back here again.
Right.
So you get women that actually have what we call a double mastectomy, both breasts removed. And I think culturally, so I've haven't been here over 20 years, and also as opposed to what we would see in other places, it is more sort of socially and culturally acceptable for women to not have breasts, when they're later in life.
Yeah.
There are other factors that go into that. Some people, might be in the public eye and need to have reconstruction. But for the most part, most of the women, especially if you're talking about women that are coming out of, smaller communities, they're not as into aesthetics as they are to getting this done, getting this over with, and getting me back to my normal life.
Yeah. So again, my grandmother, she did, is it a unimastectomy?
Yeah.
Right. She did the unimastectomy, and all of the treatment, of course, even the treatment looked a bit different.
Right.
I know people now, and my guest yesterday, we had guests over here that one did the double mastectomy and the other one is doing hormonal replacement.
Yeah, hormone therapy, yeah.
Okay. And they look completely different.
Right.
As a matter of fact, neither of them look like they have ever even had a brush with cancer.
Right.
Which is, again, I mean, massively different than it was during the period of 2004-05 when my grandmother went. Like, my grandmother looked like cancer, right? Like I say jokingly that there are two sets of people in this cancer journey: people that are in a fight against cancer, and then there are people that cancer beaten up. Right. And just seeing what the patient looks like now also looks a bit different to me. Have you had that observation as well as you go through?
So the therapeutics have actually, or the way we take care of breast cancer has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. So you touched on part of it. So there's hormonal therapy that we use more of, and even in the hormonal therapy space, there are actually more types of hormonal therapy that we now utilize. And the women that are not hormone receptor positive but have another mutation that we can take advantage of, we're using antibody therapy in those situations. Also available through the public sector.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're also using...
Available but how accessible?
Very accessible, actually. I have to say, I mean, the government has actually been, on some fronts, very good and very generous about what they allow, what we give to the public, or give a nominal fee to the public.
Sure, but I'm aware that kidney treatment is available. It's not always accessible.
No, in this instance, this is most of our stuff is pretty accessible.
Okay.
And I've been around the Caribbean, and when I'm frustrated even in the public clinic, I'll say, most Bahamians have no idea how really fantastic they have it.
Right.
Because what they have access to, if you go around the Caribbean, not happening. Not happening. So there's antibody therapy, and now we're moved into a class of therapy called immunotherapy, where that's medications that we use the immune system to actually fight against the breast cancer, and also chemotherapy. So the outlook for people with breast cancer, depending on the subtype, actually has changed quite a bit.
Okay.
And so that's likely what you're seeing when you see individuals now who've been diagnosed with breast cancer. There's a different outlook.
Now, you said something earlier. You said that the decision to, or the decision of what you will look like, whether that's uni mastectomy, double mastectomy, or for those women that opt to get a lumpectomy.
Right.
Most of that is aesthetics, or your decision on what do you want to present as once you're done. But I also think I've seen a trend, anecdotally, where, unlike my grandmother 20 years ago, who did the uni mastectomy, women appear to just, even at a younger age now, my guest yesterday, 37, had breast cancer in one breast and decided, I'm not even taking a chance, take both breasts. Of course, we know in the popular space, like Angelina Jolie's of the world, the minute there's any trace of it, just take both the breasts.
Right.
Are women becoming less attached to their breasts? I call them the gateway to womanhood, right?
Yeah.
Like, you as a woman for real once the breast set in, right? But are you noticing as a medical practitioner that the hang-ups women had 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago about the idea of losing their breast, do you notice that they aren't having those kind of hang-ups anymore?
Well, definitely among the women that are a little bit older, those hang-ups I don't think ever really existed, but
Okay.
they're definitely gone now. Among the younger women, it seems to depend a little bit on where they are in their life relationship-wise.
Okay.
And where they are as far as children and the like. Because the younger women that don't have any children or don't have a mate tend to want to keep the aesthetics become important because they still want to attract a mate.
Right.
But the ones that are basically married or settled, then the decision tree is pretty easy.
Yeah, they already have the call-up. He's already tied to the tree. He's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So they tend to say, no, let's just have a double mastectomy. It also depends on things like family history and genetics and the like. If you come from a family that has, you're the third one of, six girls that have breast cancer, then, it makes no sense, to kind of hold on to something.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, the only one and it's a small breast cancer and, there's no overall benefit from doing a double mastectomy, then those ladies do tend to want to hold on.
Now, how, you talked about the process of detection to diagnose, about 12 to 16 weeks. If you want to involve a plastic surgeon in there, especially if we go into the public sector, you're talking about almost doubling the time.
Right.
But how difficult is it to make the decision that you do want to do a reconstruct if you do not exactly get the preliminary planning correct?
So that actually is not that difficult.
Okay.
So usually in one of the earlier conversations, especially with younger women, one of the conversations we have is, about reconstruction later on. And if the plan is to do a reconstruction later on, then what happens is at the time of the mastectomy, the surgeon leaves extra skin or does some things to make the reconstruction easier or more feasible. It's almost seamless, to be quite honest. And I can tell you over the years, if you have a woman that's probably under the age of 50 or so, in the mindset of what you spoke about, which is the double mastectomy up front, invariably after about 6 months to a year in follow-up, the conversation comes up which is, all right, can I get a reconstruction done because my clothes don't fit like I want them to, or I can't wear the same tops I wanted to, and the like. And it is, in part of how women define their femininity at that point in their life. And it's an important component, right, for them. And as as anybody who's married knows, if your wife's kind of feeling that she's lacking something, it's gonna have to get fixed.
The whole house, the children don't even get milk in the cornflakes no more around here. As a matter of fact, this dog, the dog eating scraps off the table now. All that bunch of dog food, none of that.
Nobody's gonna sleep until this gets corrected. So if the reconstruction is not immediate, if the plan is to have the reconstruction done at a later date, that can be worked in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Plastic surgery in the Bahamas. Not a very big thing. You don't know this about me, but I've long championed that we should turn Grand Bahama into the plastic surgery capital of the Caribbean. Right? We have the building. The Alugai is sitting there. It's obviously never going to be a useful hospital ever again. Right? The only difference between hospitals and hotels is the way you lay out the rooms and where you put the IT. That's the only difference. Right? But plastic surgery, just from my general knowledge, I had to have conversations in the past, in my own life, about plastic surgery, and I knew then, circa 2008, that plastic surgeons weren't everywhere. I think there was Dr. Fritz Charles, I think his name is. Outside of her, I think the list was kind of slim. This was 18 years ago. How much improvement have we seen there?
So we've not seen a terribly increase in amount of plastic surgeons, but I would point out to you, there's a lot more plastic surgery that happens in the Bahamas than you would know.
In 2008?
Even back then up to now, there's a lot more plastic surgery that was happening. Those were usually happening more in the private sector. And there was a lot of kids that didn't get some milk because people needed to get reconstructive work done, or nip and tucks, those sort of stuff. So it's been a fairly vigorous market, and it still is a fairly vigorous market outside of the public sector.
Sure. Just from, I mean, this is a bit off of the breast cancer. How viable do you think in a society where breast cancer is such a prevalent disease, how viable a market do you think the reconstruct medical market, even if it's just for reconstruction of breasts in the Bahamas? I mean, like, how viable
they do quite well.
Yeah?
They do quite well.
Yeah. Because everybody wants breasts. Everybody likes breasts.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that doesn't like breasts.
Yeah, they do quite well.
Okay.
There's a reason why, you don't necessarily have to see, they don't have to work in the public sector. they do quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there was once a time when, medical advice was, for your 40th birthday, certainly for your 45th birthday, go and have your breast checked. And not just in clinic visit, but you may want to go to the lab, you may want to do a mammogram, and depending on how densely masked your breasts were, you may want to actually go and do a CT scan or an ultrasound. Is that advice still the best advice, or is it like colon cancer now, where, at first the age was 50, nowadays they're saying, you should at least go check it at about 40 just to make sure you ain't having no polyps, right? Is the advice the same surrounding breast cancer?
So the advice is pretty much the same. There's some big asterisks to it. So if you have a family member that had breast cancer, let's say at 45, then you would take 10 years away from that, and that would be your start point. Or if you have a genetic predisposition to the breast cancer, and you have this genetic predisposition, then the advice would be to start sooner, as early as 25. The modalities that you use is going to be dependent on the risks, on the person's personal risk factor. But in general, 40 is a good age. Now, adding into your observations up front, I would say, you know, if somebody fondles a breast and feels a lump that wasn't there a couple of months ago, then seriously, that's something that they should go and check out.
Right.
What we're seeing worldwide across in the field of oncology is we're seeing younger and younger people show up with malignancies.
Okay.
All right. And so that became apparent in the colon cancer world. So that's actually part of the reason why those recommendations have shifted. But we're seeing it in other cancers as well, including breast cancer. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you're just joining us, I'm in studio. We're talking about breast and breast cancer because October is, in fact, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm not a doctor. The best advice I could give you is increase the amount of sex you're having. That way you increase the amount of interaction you'll be having. That way you'd increase the amount of fondling your breast would be having. That way you'd be increasing the amount of sucking your breast would be having. And as a consequence, anecdotally, you'd be able to detect breast cancer earlier. Well, the doctor came and said I was right. Right? We could end the show there because we don't need to go past that. I want to give you all a head start so you all can get to the sucking early. Notwithstanding that, though, he's also here giving us good medical advice. And so Dr. Theodore Turnquist is my guest. We are talking healthy breasts, the pathway through treatment and care, and, of course, the pathway to restoration, if that is the one you choose. Don't go anywhere, though. That jingle means we're going to the break. This is Freedom March. We're on 103.5 The Beat FM. We'll be right back after this.
This is Freedom March.
Hello, thank you so much for staying with us to the break. Levan Miller here. We're on Freedom March. Dr. Theodore Turnquest is my guest. He's an oncologist. Is that is like oncology any kind of cancer, or do you have to? Is there like special areas of oncology?
It's a general oncology. It's a general cancers. There are people that subspecialize in different types of cancers.
Yeah.
Like women have a gynecologist, oncologist, but we cover most of it.
Okay.
We cover all of it.
So let's talk about some of the myths, right? Because, you know, in this new generation where everything is instant, the internet is a highway of information coming at a rapid rate of speed. And if you ever Google any pain you have, you're probably in stage 4 cancer, right?
Absolutely.
I always tell people, before you go to Google about your pain, drink some tea first.
Right.
Let's see if the tea can make the pain go away.
Right.
Because I promise if you ask Google, you need to have an amputation.
Right.
Okay? And so I imagine that affects the way you give care. I imagine that affects even your interactions with patients, right? I have a doctor friend who tells me, he often asks his patients, so tell me, what did Google tell you?
Right.
Because he would rather spend time just debunking the lies from the internet versus trying to give the patient information only to have the patient not listen to anything that he said because they listened to what a random Google search said.
Right.
In the area of oncology, what are some of the myths that you see more pervasive than they've been before in the past? And if there are some benefits to the internet, what are some true practices or preventative maintenance care that you would credit the internet and information for putting out there?
So I think along the myths line, there's just a numerous amount of myths. And one of the issues I think with Google searches and these other search engines is once somebody goes into, does a search and they go down an algorithm, it essentially leads them down a rabbit hole, essentially. And it doesn't sort of correct them out of the rabbit hole. So most of the myths, you know, are almost self-propagating, essentially, especially when they do these searches online. The way that the internet has actually been helpful is in the education portion.
Okay.
It's actually been a real benefit in that regard. Once you can point patients in the right direction, and part of my practice is, you know, I don't want you to be a passive participant in this decision process.
Right.
I'm going to arm you with information. I'm going to give you stuff to read. I'm going to give you homework. And I want to get you to the point that in the event something happens to me, you can go and see somebody else and you can actually evaluate the competency of that other person based on, you know, what you've learned to be truths and facts. That over the years has turned out to be quite a good thing because even things that I might not necessarily have been able to pick up on, people walking and be like, no, remember you taught me about this and this is what's happening, and this is what this looks like. And then I go, oh yeah, you're right. And you know, so using the internet as an educational tool has been in some ways a blessing. There's, you know, like every field, there's always a range of expertise and a range of, you know, you always have the kids that were in the A stream, and you always have the kids that were in the D stream.
I said the same thing about pilots. Not every pilot got an A.
Exactly. So, but then when they sit in the cockpit, you don't know who's the A guy and who's the D guy.
Right.
You just praying.
Right. We flying with the A guy today.
We flying with the A guy today. So it's the same thing in healthcare, right? So I think an informed patient is a well taken care of patient.
Yeah. So I like to say this when it comes to medicine and the internet, right? So there are two sets of people that will use the internet. There are people that will use the internet as a guideline or gradient for the pathway of care.
Right.
And then there are people that will just go down the vortex of ignorant incompetence, right? And what I try to get people to understand, even in their social media consumption, is the first 5 clicks will determine what the other 500 clicks look like.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, somehow the internet will only let you see what they think you want to see. So if your first click is, oh my God, I'm dying. The second click is, oh my God, this really feels like death. The third click is how to prepare my last will and testimony for the day that I die.
Right.
Every click after that
will take you down that.
Today, tomorrow, next week, a year from now, will be some minutia about how this gas pain in your rib is imminent death.
Right.
And next week, Thursday, you'll be dead. And next week, Saturday, we'll be... And so you've got to guard your information intake to prevent yourself from having ignorant overload.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You call it a rabbit hole. It is a, no, Doc, it isn't a rabbit hole. Rabbit holes have an end.
Right.
And most rabbit holes have another hole that you could actually, at some point, come
Escape.
back out of.
Yeah.
No, this is a vortex.
Right.
And the deeper you get into this thing, you go eventually into the abyss of just ignorance.
Right.
And so I often tell people, try to use your cell phone for more than gossip and pornography.
Right.
Right? Like, try to use it to get meaningful, useful information.
Wow.
The information is there. You don't have to always go to a doctor. I recommend that you go to a doctor. But like you said, even as a physician, you don't mind a patient saying, well, here, doc, here are some of the things I find to be the best 10 practices based on my research. Here are 5 new, I didn't even know about hormonal therapy until yesterday. But that is a conversation that I don't think we even hear enough of.
Right.
And so I'm happy to be here on Freedom March saying to women, ask about the hormonal therapy.
Right.
Just in your doctor might be having a bad day. Your doctor is a human.
Right.
Who knows? He might have a wife who ain't giving him no sex. He ain't fondled no breast in a long time. He just here being your doctor.
Right.
Today is not a good day to ask him doctor questions because he's a human.
Right.
But if you go to him and you say, hey, here is the information I have, you might actually click the button in his head on that is a scholar. And now, even if it's just a scholarly debate that he wants to have with you, that may point out some things along your pathway of care that changes your experience with the disease as it evolves. And so that's kind of what I tell people with regards to illnesses and the internet.
Yeah.
For God's sake, don't let it be a random single Google search.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're all dying if you ask Google.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. We knock the internet, but I think in healthcare, an informed patient really is a good patient for any number of reasons. And it's okay, I think, to ask questions. And one, it dispels myths. The other thing it does, though, it sort of reinforces some good practices that people start to take in, and it makes the overall patient experience much better, and it improves their outcomes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
My guest yesterday talked a little bit about, I asked, how are you managing care? Interestingly enough, 2 women around the same age group, so 35 to 45. That's the group, or is it? Okay. Because it's 18 to 30 and then 35 to 45. Okay, great. So same age group, completely different pathways of care, completely different pathways of recovery. One has done the surgery, she did the test, there's no more sign of cancer. She says she's not taking anything, she's doing natural pushes as her way out. Of course, there is the other one that's doing the hormonal therapy and taking a cocktail of drugs. But she has said that since having onboarded all of these additional chemical drugs, she is being very diligent about altering her lifestyle. So exercise, changing eating habits. She's not like Miss Olympia or anything. She still looks like a very natural, normal, behaving woman. But do you have any preferences as a medical physician in either direction, the natural pathway, the chemical consumption of pills, the alteration of eating habits? I mean, which have you found in your practice has been the better route?
So let's talk a little bit about a natural pathway. So, you know, you go down these pathways, you know, somebody says you eat this bush, drink this thing. You know, once it enters the body, you're still giving yourself chemicals.
Okay.
And in order for it to work, it has to be converted into some form that the body can use.
Okay.
All right. And, you know, a lot of people think that this whole thing, especially in oncology, is sort of made up in a lab and the like. Most drugs that are used in oncology actually come from a living organism.
Okay.
One of the most successful drugs for breast cancer, the medication called paclitaxel, comes from the Pacific yew tree.
Okay.
All right. So, you know, if you were 500 years ago and you just decided that you had breast cancer, you started chewing on yew leaves, turns out you were actually treating your breast cancer, right? Now, the only difference between chewing on the yew leaves and actually getting the medication in the lab is the purity of it.
Okay.
And the volume. So the volume's consistent, the purity's consistent. All right. So this idea that there's this big opposition between natural medicine and traditional medicine is a little bit one of those fallacies. I think once people sit down and sort of hear where some of these things come from, then they go, okay, wait a minute, I don't have to sort of use
I don't have to go through a bush.
A random bush, which will maybe give you 5% of what you need.
Right.
You know, you could get 100% of what you need without all the other things that go in there. We do tend to, we do stick with the more traditional medications, the tried and true. Just because there's not anecdotal evidence, there's scientific evidence that these things work in these situations. Over the years, you know, I've become less sort of dogmatic about it. You know, not sit through, but, you know, try to understand why people are choosing what they're choosing.
Right.
Quite simply, a lot of times, it's just a lack of knowledge.
Okay.
A lack of knowledge about how stuff works. What the mechanism of action is. All right. You know, and when you start to get into that space, then you start to realize, okay, one of these things is usually just fear.
Okay.
Fear and the lack of understanding. I would say, you know, like your grandmother in 2004, you know, the typical interaction would have been, listen, I'm not doing any of this stuff, X, Y, and Z. And I would have been like, okay, well, you know, we're doing this to cure you, so that you don't ever have to come back.
Right.
But if you don't do this, then you might be back here next year.
Right.
And if you're back here next year,
you're going to be worse.
You're going to be worse.
Yeah.
You know, and once we open that conversation, and then, you know, what comes out the door then is, these are the things that I've been told would happen to me. This is my belief. And then, you know, if once somebody sits down and sort of talks them through it and go, okay, well, that's not really true. This is what it is, or this is how we can treat it. Then you get fundamentally a change because there's understanding, but also importantly, you've developed a rapport and there's trust. There's trust that, you know, this young man sitting across from me, or this old man sitting across from me, depends on what you're looking at. You know, he genuinely cares about whether or not I make it or not. You know, and you know, we have a society that really is very dependent on the women in our lives. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Absolutely.
And, you know, one of the things that I would always tell the ladies that are, you know, might be 70 or 80, especially the ladies out of Cat Island and stuff like that, you know, these children and grandchildren, the world is a better place because you're in it.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the thing you hate about women is the fact that you love them so much.
Absolutely.
That's actually what I hate about them. Yeah. So, Doc, I have to now ask this question because we got to get to this, right? No pawpaw tree, no breadfruit tree, no soursop tree in the Bahamas is safe.
No, none.
My grandmother, during her cancer treatment, if you know the places I've driven
to pick up
a leaf. No, I don't care where we going. I don't care what we late for. If she spot a random soursop tree in the distance, my friend, we have to stop and pick this random bag of random soursop leaf for her to make this gallon jug of concoction that she's gonna put in the fridge.
Right.
Any truth at all because nothing, I want to tell you this, nothing takes you off of your axis more than going into the refrigerator at 2 o'clock in the morning, seeing a jug because when you boil it, it's kind of red, right? And you see this jug of, if you grew up I grew up in the inner city, right? Sometimes you ain't got no matching Kool-Aid, right? So sometimes you have like a green one and a red one.
You put it together.
And it come out a little brown, right? So as far as your mind concerned, we just had a little low-budget Kool-Aid week.
Right.
And this is some low-budget Kool-Aid, right? I really like Kool-Aid, by the way. And so you get up 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't really want to open your eye, and you pour yourself a nice, tall, refreshing glass of soursop leaf.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Nothing can end your sleepiness.
Like that taste.
But is it for any real purpose, Doc?
So going back, all right. So I never completely discount these sort of natural remedies that people think that would help them or believe that it help them. Because back to what I said earlier, I mean, one of the most successful chemotherapy agents came from a yew tree, essentially. So the question is there an active agent in this concoction that might be useful? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to tell you 100% definitely no. What we don't want, though, is people to feel that there is no consequence to drinking this. Because when you boil
it tastes bad.
You boil it, you drink it. So whatever compounds that are in that you're looking for benefit go into the body, and they have to either be metabolized, meaning into their active form, or the liver has to deal with them. And sometimes the medications that we're given are completely inactivated by, something innocuous as green tea. Right. So I would say, for the most part, I've not found a lot of usefulness. Like I said, I've been doing this over 20 years. So I've gone through Noonie, I've gone through Goji, I've gone through, so you want to drink something that...
I didn't want to
I've gone through guava leaf, I've gone through shark fin cartilage, I've gone through any number of berries over the years. And so every year, there always seems to be some miracle.
A new bush.
Some miracle leaves, a miracle bush. I always remember, I was in Long Island many years ago, and my aunt, God rest her soul, she was doing a deworming process on all her all her kids and her nieces and nephews who were there, and she gave us a small, I knew it was a setup because she said, "Oh, come and have this teaspoon of sugar," and then she gave us a small glass of Jerusalem bush. You ever had Jerusalem bush?
No, but it sounds awful.
Oh my God. Anyway, so here it is now, probably 45 years later, and I still remember the taste of the Jerusalem bush. So there's always throughout our history going to be a bush that people sort of cling to as a new hope. And it's basically that. It's a new hope. And now I frame it as people want to know what they can do for themselves every day to make this condition better.
Well, I've come up with a theory, Doc. You have to stay with me. I like anecdotal theories. And I believe that is where pioneering of greatness comes from, right?
Right.
You have to be non-afraid of being called a crazy person.
Right.
And then you go and you do crazy things that are only crazy today. But if you give it some time, 50, 100 years from now, people may say, this guy was a genius.
Right.
So anecdotally, I've decided that the reason why the soursop, papaya, and breadfruit leaf concoction used to cure cancer was because this thing tastes so bad either the cancer could go. Yeah, or you could be so afraid to have to drink more of this. When they ask you feel the cancer? No, I'm healed. And I'm always wary of old women, right? So this is not about breast cancer, but I remember back in the day, I always struggled with horrible sinuses, right? And so even now as a man, I struggle with my sinuses. And my grandmother would always do this little thing where she rubs the buccales around my neck, around my nose. I also realized that putting it on my nose bridge was a technique to make me go sleep because you can't open your eyes. Right. But once she rubbed it on my nose bridge, she would always give me a dime size of it and say, here, swallow it. All right. And I can tell you that I always remember having an upset stomach and having to vomit, right? And that would heal me. Like I wouldn't have the congestion anymore. Right. As an adult, though, I read the label, and the label says, in bold, do not swallow. Absolutely. Do not ingest. Right. And I said, well, my goodness.
This woman's trying to kill me from back then.
And so the reason I can't have sinus issues is because I'm dying. I'm dying.
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. But I will admit, tomorrow morning, I feel perfect. All right. And now that I'm an adult, I've drawn the correlation. You feel better today because your body spent all night poisoned. And now that your body has expectorated all of the poison.
It's like, oh, party time again. Absolutely.
Yeah. Old women, my goodness. So Doc, we're into the final minutes of the segment, and I just want to make sure that you give some of your best advice to particularly younger women, right? Old people, in my view, should be sick and old. They're old, they've lived. Right. But for my younger sisters who are either not in this fight at the beginning of the fight, or who may interact with the fight either as a participant or as a support staff, what is your best advice?
My best advice is educate yourself, become knowledgeable. The more knowledgeable you are, the easier a lot of this stuff becomes. It becomes easier for you as an individual. It becomes easier for you as a caretaker. It becomes easier for you to traverse the healthcare system, both public and private. But education is key. And I would say go to reputable sites and talk to reputable people. Most people with a high school education can pick up 90% of this and understand it. I trust my patients, and I would say I trust the Bahamian public to be able to educate themselves on the topic.
Yeah, and more importantly, don't matter what your Grammy tell you, do not swallow the buccales rub. That will not. That certainly won't cure the breast cancer for you, all right? It did get rid of my inflammation in my chest. Anyway, thank you so much, Doc, for joining us here on Freedom March. Happy to have you. So we've been here. We've been talking to Dr. Turnquest, and he has given us all of the things that I think we need to know about breast cancer. Don't move, though. We've got more Freedom March on the next side of the break. This is Freedom March.
Every single person matters. Every single dream is worthy of support. Every single challenge must be confronted. There is no space for sitting small. There is no space for fear. But there is room enough for those who are brave enough to refuse the path of the least resistance, and with brave hearts cut a path for those who are counting on us.
This is Freedom March.
Hello, welcome back to Freedom March. Thank you so much again for staying with us through the break. I'm Levan Miller. We're on 103.5 The Beat FM, channel 224 on cable, channel 1121 Flow, and of course on ILTV Studios on Facebook. We're also on YouTube, so you should check us out on YouTube. But wherever you are checking us out today, thank you so much for checking us out. I don't say that to you if you're already listening to us. You already know where to find good radio. Call your friends, tell your friends that what they're listening to isn't good radio. And tell them to come over here and listen to us on Freedom March, where at least the goal is to inform, to educate, and from time to time when they run me hot, especially when we talk about breasts, I just get entertaining. Bradley Roll, the spiritual advisor extraordinary and plenipotentiary, is with me in studio. Bradley Roll, welcome back to Freedom March.
Thank you so much. Good to be here, Levan.
Yeah, and of course, you know, often we have Bradley here with scripture. But Bradley, you've heard from the doctor, you've heard my anecdotal evidence that if you suck the breast, Bradley, you will find the cancer. You heard Doc say that I'm not exactly wrong. Doc say a little bit of breast fondling could go a long way in the detection of breast cancer, which is the gateway or the beginning of breast cancer treatment, Bradley. And so I said to myself, wow, I wonder if the scripture could tell me something about, about, I don't know, what does the scripture say about things like, we talked about the apostles all week long.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
We talked about miracles
Miraculous
all week long.
miracles.
But you and I both agree that there is no need for all them miracles because we have medicine. And medicine has done miraculous things. And so, I don't know, as people of faith, Bradley, I mean, how do you as a man of faith kind of
strike a balance between
Yeah.
medicine and faith?
Yeah.
You have to, but before we get to that, right, one of the things that I thought was very interesting in a research, it says that women who breastfeed, for some strange reason, tend to be a bit more healthy as far as their breast is concerned
Right.
than those who probably just use a breast pump.
Right.
Or those who find a way to extract the milk from the breast without
Right.
Breastfeeding.
Breast sucking is important.
Yeah, so it does seem as if there's some scientific evidence to suggest that women who do breastfeed tend to be a bit more healthier as far as their health and breast
What about if
concerned.
they breastfeed the man?
Well, if once it's your husband, yeah, but some women complain about breastfeeding, and that they think it could be painful, and then the child sometimes tend to nibble a bit too hard on, because I think females says that what's the tip of the breast, the nipple?
The nipple.
Yeah, that it's a bit sensitive. And
Bradley, people call it the tip of the breast. I've never heard anybody refer to it.
I asked you with the tip name. Because you,
I've never,
you say you use a breast specialist.
I've
you
just
see?
never heard anybody refer to it as the tip of the breast.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But some women complain. I don't know if you experienced that, but they complain that it's a bit sensitive during the breastfeeding part of the child life, and they prefer to use a pump to just get it all out, store it in the fridge, and then when the baby needs it, warm it up and feed it to the baby.
You know, this is a bit off the topic, Bradley, right? But and bear with me, okay? Bradley, how come these women struggle so severely with woman functions?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I
It's
had
a very
young
interesting
lady the other
question.
day told me that, you know, she was having some swelling in her feet during her pregnancy. She's probably never going to talk to me after this, but
some of them do.
I don't know. I like to talk people business. It's not like I'm calling their name. And, you know, she said that she was actually trying to have herself damned handicapped.
Because of swelling the feet?
Yeah, but for like the purpose of having to go to the supermarket and having to go and move around, go to doctor's visits, you know, because...
You mean like parking space or something?
Parking spaces and, you know, the ability to use, I guess, certain rampways or, you know, to not have to stand on lines for long periods, right? And Bradley, I was gently offended by that. Firstly, I'm a friend to the Disabled Association. Hello, Mr. Ellis and the team over there. But outside of that, Bradley, my Grammy had 18 children. She wasn't disabled one time.
And I always wondered, though, because we were And we all were very small when our parents had all these kids, because my mother brought 9 children by natural, no, I think she had 1 C-section. And that was with the first boy, right? But she did 9. Now, you didn't hear them complain, but in my mind, in the absence of them not complaining, you wonder what difficulty they may have faced that they did not say anything about.
So what's making them complain so much now then?
Well, it's modern times. The women are not the same. They're not cut from the same cloth. They don't have the same endurance,
when
discipline.
your mommy was 27, that was her modern times.
Yeah.
50 years from today, they will consider this old.
Yeah.
Human beings are never not living in modern times. You follow what I'm
That's
saying?
true, and they do adjust, because it's just been thousands of years since humans
I think
have
these
been on the
women
face of
clog
the earth.
up. I think some of them just clog up because I think this whole preserving motherhood until you're 35, 40 is clog you up. And so you clog up. That's why you're having all these issues. Because the baby serum, this is more anecdotal evidence, and I want to say that I said at the top of the show, Bradley, that sometimes in order to be considered a pioneer of information in the future, you have to be deemed a crazy man in the present. So I'm comfortable being called crazy. And I am of the view, anecdotally, that the reason you're all having some of these issues is you're going to take too long to have babies, so you all clog up. And that's why your foot them swell up and stuff like that. My Grammy never had swell foot. She born 18 children home with a hot towel, Bradley, and a sister who couldn't read.
Yeah, I do think doctors or science may suggest that the earlier you have your children, the better it is for you, as far as the female body is concerned. The female body probably same as built and structured in a way where early childbearing is best, rather than wait until you're 45 and 50 to have a child, which could become extremely difficult and could possibly lead to
birth defects.
Yeah, and different situations at that stage. But for the day, it's just different. I feel as if the teachings and the understanding of childbearing and child rearing in these modern times, the old landmark and teachings were not enforced and passed down. And so the young women today have a different mindset, and they just don't feel as if they should be as much committed to child rearing and childbearing like our parents did.
And now that I think about this, Bradley, because it's
what
Breast
it is.
Cancer Awareness Month, I'm trying to make sure that we stay in the vein of breast cancer, right? But we're talking about breasts, which belong to women, and as a consequence, we talk about women holistically because women are holistic creatures, right? But if there's a correlation between the breastfeeding of children, right? And what we know, based on what the doctor said, that over in the last 20 years, 25 years, according to him, in his practice, they've seen an uptick in breast cancer. What I've also noted, anecdotally, is that the study between 1980, I think that was when the last study was done, and now, there has been like a 70% decline in birth rate, right? And if there's a correlation between breastfeeding the baby and breast cancer, and there's been a 70% decrease in birth rate, then it is fair, anecdotally, to assume that the uptick in the breast cancer could be as a consequence of the downtick in the birth rate. My Grammy, who had 5 children, had breast cancer. My Grammy, who had 18 children, had no breast cancer. It is possible, anecdotally, to suggest that maybe the baby making is what was keeping the breast cancer
down. Let me
down.
ask the question, is there any scientific evidence to suggest that women who don't have children won't have breast cancer?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so there's no science to that, yeah. Because I think the mammary glands do make adjustment once the body gets pregnant. Once the female body, once the body detects another human being growing in there, the breast makes changes. Some get enlarged and so on and so forth, become more sensitive, and then that process of making the milk for the baby begins. So I'm just wondering if
Probably don't tell these women them that they're already in.
Okay, that's true.
They're already in having. Miles LaRoda says, if y'all don't hurry up have some baby, they got the shut and I be done. So if you tell these women them that now, God forbid, that'll be it. The next baby would born around here, you'll be on the rapture day.
But the NIB system is a pay forward system, right?
Yeah, and you need somebody to pay it forward.
Yeah, which is true. But getting back to our faith and healing.
Right.
It does seem as if there's a passage in the New Testament that suggests that Jesus Christ placed some faith in physicians. Remember, he used this parable. He said, listen, it isn't those who are well that need a physician.
Correct.
It is those who are sick. Right.
Right.
So obviously, in the mind of Christ, physicians did play a role.
He was metaphorically speaking, though, right? He was metaphorically speaking about people who said that he liked to hang with wine bibbers and that kind of stuff.
Right. So, I mean, the suggestion was that he being the ultimate physician and the healer of man's souls was the man who would bring relief to your soul.
Correct.
And then he talked about, well, I'm the one to do that. But the doctor, he doesn't need to go to people who are well.
He need to go visit
so
the sick.
He's saying, you righteous people, if you're righteous, all right, don't worry, I ain't come to you. I am here for those who need their souls to be healed. But I'm just saying that obviously he placed some faith by using that metaphor, and he had placed some faith in physicians. So the thing is, faith in physicians, there's nothing wrong with that. We have a lot of modern medicine. Man has almost reached the point where he's been doing very, very well with medicine. Certain cancers can prolong your life. Certain treatment of cancers can prolong your life. The treatment of the 1984 was it HIV or AIDS epidemic or whatever you want to call it, that's now been reduced to little or nothing. They have modern medicine now that basically can say that you're free from AIDS. And so medicine is advancing. Yes, we have our faith in God and nothing changes, but faith in physician and medicine, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it does seem as if the very difficult ones that need miraculous healing, then you have to leave that in the hands of God. Because a lot of things that people end up suffering from, they will tell you, well, the doctor told me, but this eye disease that I have, that there's no cure for it.
Yeah.
And so...
But there are times that we do see miracles or miraculous things. You don't know this about me. I'm the son of a diver. My daddy had a dive disease known as the Bends, right? In 2000, I was still in high school, so 2001, right? Yes, I was in high school in 2001. And he had lost the ability to walk.
Wow.
For about 9 months. And the doctor told him that based on the tests, walking didn't look likely
to happen again.
Due to the damage from the nitrogen, etc., etc. My daddy had to do, I think, something like 12 or 15 treatments in the decompression chamber. You know, they call it the hyperbaric chamber. Yeah, he had it really terribly. And it was also because he was coming off of having the bends before, taking a break and then going back, because it was his employ. That's what he did as his vocation, right? So I don't know what you tell a fisherman to do if he's at the bends, if he's a fisherman, right? So he goes back, he gets the bends this time, so much so that I think there's some damage to his spine and damage to his legs, and the doctors are saying that they don't think this man's gonna walk. But can I tell you, Bradley, in about 18 months, the man taught himself
how to walk.
To walk again, yes. And this is from being lifted everywhere to putting his feet out of the bed onto the ground and picking his body up. So sometimes, I mean, there's no way to explain it scientifically. It must have been God, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But, I mean, again, when you look at things like breast cancer, there's so much information, there's so much science. I often cringe a little bit, though, although I believe in God, right? So I might have been like one of the disciples that we talked about earlier when Jesus said the people in the room, I might have gone right behind the people. Because even though I've witnessed that with my dad, right in my own house, right? I cringe when I hear people say, child, I'm leaving it in the hands of the Lord. You don't need to leave it in the hands of the Lord. You could just go see the doctor.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
You know, we don't need to test God out here.
Yeah.
Just go to the oncologist.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people need to recognize the importance of putting faith in modern medicine. There's nothing absolutely wrong with doing that. A lot of folks believe that you can say that they lack faith because they want to go to the doctor to check to see what this lump is all about. They want to go to the doctor to find out what this bleeding is all about. They want to go to the doctor to see why they're having these constant headaches and so on and so forth. And folks, the religious folks will say, man, listen, you run to the doctor for everything.
Yeah.
You never hear what Dr. Jesus said.
Yeah.
And
then
so,
they sing a hymn, Bradley. You know the hymn?
No.
Oh, Lord, you've been good to me. You know the one?
No.
When I was sick, I wasn't doing
Yeah. You healed my body.
You healed my body.
And now I can tell?
Now
Okay,
I could tell.
I remember that.
You don't have to sing that song.
Yeah.
Just
Go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with placing faith.
Yeah.
And mind you, honestly, I believe that there's nothing too hard for God.
Oh, man, you can't say my church of God.
All right? There's
now.
nothing that God can't do.
Oh.
There's nothing beyond his power.
My God could do
right?
anything.
Absolutely. And the thing about God is that the Bible says there's nothing impossible with him. But I do believe that he has placed modern medicine and physicians here because they were even back in Jesus' day for a reason. And we should have enough faith.
One of Jesus' disciples was a doctor.
Yes, Luke was a doctor.
Yeah.
You know? And so you said
and I think
yourself,
that was out of wisdom. Jesus said, just in case I fall down, I need a doctor.
Yeah. And obviously they had medical centers where people would go into various rooms and stuff and be taken care of. Remember the man who was beaten as he traveled along the road to Jericho? The traveler.
Is this
the Good Samaritan? Yeah. Took him into an inn and asked the fellow, listen, I want you to take care of this man.
Right.
So, no doubt he was bandaged and his wounds and stuff were taken care of. Whatever medicine they may have used at the time, it could have been just bush. They may have rested on it. And no doubt he survived.
But Bradley,
Yeah?
here is where I am on it, right? Believing in the doctor is not lacking in faith in God.
No,
who make the doctor?
No, God make the doctor.
Who make the doctor?
God make the doctor, and God give the doctor the knowledge. Listen, if you look at 2,000 years ago to now, and you look at medicine 2,000 years ago to now, it's remarkable.
Indeed.
Mind you, I honestly believe that every single medicine that man may have today has to be an extract of something from the earth.
Doc just said that one of the most effective drugs in the fight against crime and chemotherapy is something from the yew plant, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said earlier, I believe in the power of God. Matter of fact, I tell you, when I hear you cause me change your God flare because I start singing to myself. You know this one? My God, talking about my God could do anything.
And that's the truth.
I like the part where they say, he could heal the sick. He could raise the dead. 5,000 hungry souls he fed. You know this part?
Yeah.
It makes no difference what God could do. What he's done for others, he can do it for you. So I believe in the power of God. But there are people, Bradley, who say, oh, you ain't got it unless you claim it. How conceptual is that?
Yeah, well, what's interesting?
Bradley, I don't need to claim it. If the doctors say that the amount of sugar in my blood look a little elevated, I don't need to claim that. All I am doing is reporting what the blood tests say. You take a test for everything else, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
How you know how much air in your tire? You test it.
Yeah, they have a machine that you could.
Okay, you believe that gauge. So why, when the doctor tell you your sugar high, you ain't believe him? Why, when the doctor tell you that this thing look malignant, you ain't believe him? You have any tests home? No. Who have the test? The doctor. Who make the test? The scientist. Who make the scientist?
The doctor. God did. God made. Mind you, I understand for some folks how important faith is, right? Because there's a passage in James chapter 5. I think the verse is around 14 or to 16, right? Where James tells the Christian, listen, if anyone is sick among you, let him call for the elders of the church. And I understand the faith, how deep the faith is. You call for the elders of the church, right? And the Bible says, in the prayer offered in faith will make the sick man well, and the Lord will raise him up.
Oh, praise the Lord.
So we're not trying to negate faith in God and how he's the ultimate healer. But we do believe that the physicians, they have their position in the scheme of things as far as God is concerned, with modern medicine and techniques used to help you along with.
But doesn't the Bible tell us that God don't have no other hand but ours?
That's deep. We're earthen vessels. As a matter of fact, he uses us to get his message and to do his his things
Yes.
here on earth. The human beings, like us, we are all earthen vessels because
Yes.
we're used by God to
And
carry
we're made
his
in the
mission.
image and the likeness of.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course,
so
of course.
what you mean don't go to the doctor?
Yeah.
You go to the doctor. So here's the steps, ladies. You go home tonight, you get your breast fondled, right? Doc say there's some science in that. Don't just get it fondled, get it sucked a little bit too, because there's some science in that. Have one baby, let the baby suck your breast, because there's some science in that.
Yeah, the breastfeeding.
But if by
do say
chance
that.
this breast start to feel a little funny, right? Go to doc.
The expert.
Because doc could help you fix the breast.
Yeah, find out what's going on.
And if you need to do a mastectomy, don't worry about that because doc say you can put them back on. And the set you put back on, he say you get to decide what they could look like.
Interesting.
Yeah, you could decide. You used to be a C cup, you might want a B cup. You might
And that's
whatever
just
you
how
decide.
far the science of it has advanced. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
They can almost turn the woman body into a perfect body that would keep man looking at it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But you can't beat God with
Now it
natural
depends
love.
on perfect by who's standing now, Bradley. Because some of these women look like something off of the movie Ants. You ever watch the movie Ants?
Their arms get a little small little base.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
big tail.
Yeah.
Well, some
They
women say
look
that's
to
what they
me
want.
like how the 1996 Maxima used to look when it come right off out of Fort Lauderdale off a Copart. You ever see the Maxima going down the road?
Or like a crab.
And,
Like
the body of the
one
Maxima
part
twist?
back and yeah. That's bad chassis weight. That's all that is.
Yeah, so
That's it.
don't let Dr. Mongalo do that to you, right? Please just leave what God put there because it don't look normal. And you're making me nervous and I don't want to have to stare at it. And if you can keep walking around looking like that, I have to stare at it, Bradley.
Yeah,
But that's not what this is about. This is about breast cancer. So, Bradley, we're almost at the end of the show. What's happening this weekend?
This weekend, I'm understanding that we're going to have some weather.
More weather
This is
again.
what
Not
is
like the
the-
weather last week, what I tell the people, pump out your cesspit. Make sure all the drains clear. Bradley, not
Not
a drop
of
of
rain.
But to my defense, I get my weather every day, come to my phone, and that's what the weather people, y'all don't blame Basil for that one. The weather people on the phone tell me that. But Bradley, not even a, my grandma used to say, not even a sprinkle of rain.
Well, it is predicted that we're going to probably get a very first cold front.
Oh, praise the Lord.
And so the temperatures are going to drop a bit, they're saying. You can feel some cooler temperatures.
Yeah.
And then along with that, you get, well, before that happens, they're saying that there's going to be some rain that's going to start on Saturday, Sunday, and even into Monday, the holiday. So
Okay.
they're predicting that this weekend it's just going to be one of those weekends where it's going to be some rain, but the good side of it, it's going to be cooler.
Yeah.
So no doubt.
Well, you know,
we can-
November usually is the opening season for cold weather.
Yeah.
I've found, again, anecdotally, in my research, my time at being at sea and all that other stuff, being in the bush and all the other things I hated at some point, that November 2nd is usually a cold day. I don't know how the universe decides that. November 2nd is usually a very cold day. If not cold, very breezy. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right.
And so that's what's going to happen this weekend. I don't know, Bradley. I may get into some frolicking. It's a holiday on Monday, yeah?
Yeah, Monday's holiday.
It's a holiday Monday.
It's,
What is
what?
this one going to be?
Heroes Day. if I'm not
Heroes
mistaken.
Day. What
Heroes
is
Day.
Heroes Day used to be what?
Columbus Day. So they've replaced Columbus and they put some heroes there.
They've not
That's-
replaced Columbus. I drive past. I drive past Government House and Columbus is still not there.
Wow.
Just like that Columbus going, eh? My
Indeed.
goodness. And you know, I had a granny who every time she would like come in with bags and stuff and you stand there and don't help her, she used to say, come help me with these bags. You're standing there with your hand and your Kimber like Columbus. Well, guess what, Annie boy, though? Columbus ain't got your hand in Kimber no more. Anyway, Bradley, I hear the jingle. The jingle means we're out of time, not out of show, but it's the weekend. You know the drill. Do every single thing in your power to ensure that you don't kill nobody this weekend. It's a long weekend. It's a holiday. I want you to go and have fun. Wet up the place. Have a jolly good time. Have what the Flintstones would call ordinarily a yabba dabba do time this weekend. It's a holiday. Do all the things that your heart tells you to do. Do everything that you can imagine. But more important than making sure you don't kill nobody, make sure nobody don't kill you this weekend. And if you do that, we'll see you right back here on Freedom March next week.
Tuesday. If it's the Lord's will, we'll be back.
The Verizon Media Group, home of ILTV, Paramount Systems Limited, Eyewitness News, and Beyond the Headlines.